Welcome to Sam Outside. I'm Sam, and I'm outside, very aware of the stresses in nature and in life in general today. Because in our area, in much of Ontario here in Canada, we're under an air quality advisory due to the wildfire smoke from forest fires that are literally thousands of kilometers, 1,500 kilometers away, like 1,000 miles away. It's looming overhead. And that smoke, that smell of smoke, has a definite stress response in nature and on humans, obviously, as an extension of that. So the smell of smoke evokes a very, very ancient, very primordial reaction in nature. First of all, in the plants, that signals preparation. So a lot of our coniferous trees, they will start to harden their cones. That shell, that very different kind of wood that's protecting the seeds in the cone. It's got content of resin in it. It doesn't burn as easily. It's meant to protect the seeds, specifically against fire. So that smoke response that we've had in the air for a couple of days now is affecting those trees, and it affects wildlife, right? So there's a natural response. Now that stress, right, like any other kind of stress that we probably have the ability to relate to, does start to become chronic. All right, that cortisol that comes with the initial stress response it serves a purpose. It's meant to prepare us, fight, flight, freeze, fawn. However, when that threat doesn't present itself and cause a reaction, that cortisol response, that adrenaline, is meant to be useful for. When that reaction, that source, doesn't present itself, but the fear is still there, it just becomes part of everyday life, and that becomes chronic stress. And that chronic stress does start to affect physical beings. It affects our emotional state, affects our mental state. It keeps us in a sense of high alert, right? There's an awareness that comes with that, but that energy comes at a cost. So it starts to affect our sleep. It starts to affect our metabolism. It starts to affect our energy, and it affects the way we perceive the world around us, how we treat others. And if others in our environment are suffering the same response, our interactions, due to their stress, are affected by that. So there is this communal stress. And there are air quality advisories. So those people who might suffer from any sort of respiratory ailment, they are at risk of being additionally stressed to the point where they are recommended to seek medical attention due to air quality. And there's no escaping it, right? There's only so much a household air purification system can handle like this. I grew up in a steel town, so I know what it is to see grandma's laundry, her whites come off the clothesline in the morning. Yeah, they're covered in ash. They're covered in basically coke dust from the steel plant. So people just knew and understood how to live with that contamination. And it did have long-term lasting effects on the physical well-being for people who lived in those communities. So people, after dealing with this kind of stress, it becomes chronic. And so there are additional needs for finding sources of relief of stress. And yes, I've got hundreds of videos advocating the need for using nature to help cope with stress. But when this time in nature has its own risk, has its own source of stress, well, that changes the need for spending time outdoors, right? It still has benefits, but there are definitely some factors that are affecting my ability to cope and our ability to cope with what is happening in nature, despite it being an actual threat quite locally, right? So it affects the birds and the wildlife. Their behavior patterns change. Their need for resource allocation will change because of that. Their need to find others and safety will change because of the threat, looming threat that is a natural response to wildfire or forest fire smoke. So it's on the air and it's on our minds. So all we can do is, well, cope and have empathy and think of those who are not so distant from that source of stress and have empathy. And at the same time, have appreciation, gratitude for our current and local situation that we are not as risk. So our local communities have put a total and complete fire ban, which is pretty normal when we have conditions that are so hot and dry the way they have been, and there's no reprieve in sight. There's no relief coming from forecasted rains, and any amount of rain that is forecasted won't be enough. So it's a source of stress. And if people don't have the ability to manage that stress, who don't have habits and the ability to cope physically, mentally, emotionally with stress, this is an additional source that can affect physically, mentally, and emotionally. So whatever works for you, be aware, but at the same time, recognize that there are limitations to our ability, especially when there's something so omnipresent. It's just all around us, and it's going to be here for some time until those fires are put out, which the current state of the forests might take some time at a cost of human efforts. We hope not at cost of human lives, but it's on our minds. So please, despite where you are, think of how conditions for other people around the planet are in relation to their situation and how it actually creates and manages stress levels. So go outside, but be aware. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.